Fans of fast, it's been a minute, but finally, the wait is over. Bike Park Innsbruck is about to deliver the essential ingredients to turn your pandemic frown upside down. A pumped up DH track with just the right amount of natural charisma. And a long list of mountain bike fast people frothing to get back between the tape. Fire up your browser and dust off your cowbell. The ultimate experience in mountain biking and the IXS Downhill Innsbruck presented by Raiffeisen Club are coming in hot. Welcome, race fans. If you're like me, you are jonesing for some downhill race action, and that is exactly what we plan to bring to you from Innsbruck, Austria. This is the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. I'm your host, Cam McCall, alongside professional downhill racer and our sport analyst today, Elliot Jackson, and the stage is set to give us exactly what we want, Elliot. Between the tape, top to bottom, just racing. It's been far too long.
It's been so long, and this is actually the first time this year that we're going to see a lot of these racers race. We have some people that weren't at Crankworx ROTORUA, and this was actually one of my favorite tracks of the whole year last year on the Crankworx World Tour, so it's going to be a good day.
It's a real deal race course, and it's coming at an amazing time too, with World Champs coming up next weekend. This is exactly what we need to kind of whet the appetite. I mean, we're talking about how we haven't seen downhill racing for a while. Guess who else we haven't seen? Brook Macdonald. This is insane to think that we're going to see the return of the Bulldog just like 13 months after a serious spinal cord injury. He had to relearn how to walk. He is our top dog right now because he won last year here at Innsbruck. He also started the 2020 season on a high in Rotorua by winning the downhill there as well. I mean, he was unstoppable last year, 2019 season, winning Rotorua, winning Innsbruck Downhill. And to think that, we never thought if we'd ever see Brook Macdonald between the tape again. And this soon, it's truly remarkable.
Yeah, the journey that Brook has been on, and I love the way that he showed us. He was vulnerable with his Instagram, telling us the challenges that he had faced. Really going through the ups and downs with him was an amazing journey.
So a lot of ups last season for Brook Macdonald, finishing with a serious downer with that spinal cord injury. It takes a turn toward the positive again now with him returning to racing.
Yeah, Brook, that journey was incredible to see. And I think it took so much vulnerability, openness to show everyone what it looks like. We saw all the riders doing that Mont-Sainte-Anne. You saw Blinky there, one of his really good friends, carrying him out of Mont-Sainte-Anne to that ambulance ride. And just that whole year, he talks about spending 20 days not taking a shower,
last year was really
and that 30-plus flight.
And every milestone along the way was so monumental. We're seeing these shots of him just standing up for the first time. That blew our minds.
No matter what Brook goes through, I think that toughness kind of shows through.
Yeah, I mean, we run these start orders in reverse based on previous rankings and results. So we're going to be seeing Brook Macdonald be the final racer on course. At this moment is just going to be something for us to celebrate the fact that he's on course. We'll be cheering him on, but we have also seen footage of him in practice. It's remarkable not only that he's racing, but that he looks like on point too.
Right? Yeah, I know. We actually had a conversation with him at Crankworx Rotorua, and I asked him, were you scared to get back on the bike? And he was like, no, not at all. No hesitation. And so you can see that, watching him ride Schladming, watching him ride practice, and he's feels like he hasn't skipped a beat.
Brook will be dropping in last for the men, and let's touch on this again. TRACEY Hannah will be dropping in last for the women, of course, because she's undefeated on this course. What do you think it is about TRACEY that's allowed her to be so dominant? Do you think she'll be able to continue with that here in 2020?
Yeah, with TRACEY, she's really when she gets that momentum, I'm trying to find the right word for like a mental kind of momentum, a comfort. And at Crankworx, she feels like more than anywhere. It feels like she can just turn it on, you know, no matter what it is, do the jumps, really just like get into that groove. And I think Crankworx kind of does that for her.
Yeah, so the strong mental game of TRACEY Hanna has been unstoppable. I mean, pretty much just in Crankworx in general, but specifically on this course. But it'll be really interesting, though. We also have Valley Hall competing in the elite category this year, so plenty to keep your eyes fixed on. And what will we be watching? What is this course going to look like? A couple changes this year, and what better way to wrap our heads around this new course than by jumping on board with Lori Greenland and the man himself, Brook Macdonald, in our GoPro course preview. Let's have a look at this. Space, of course, we're hanging out in the Austrian Alps, the city in the mountains, beautiful Innsbruck, Austria. And this course, as you mentioned before, Elliot, has become a favorite to all the racers out here.
Greenland. We're here at Crankworx for the IXS Downhill, presented by Raiffeisen for the GoPro course preview.
Starting to be different. I'm pretty sure the changes are closer down toward the bottom. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely true. This course was brand new last year, so it was super soft. All that stuff that you're seeing right now is freshly cut in. Now it's going to be way faster, like so much faster. A lot of this stuff, you know, if you got into the wrong part, you would hit the dust, hit the loose stuff, and almost go over the bars. The other thing to think about on this course is the long straights. You have these really important turns like we see here, and once you get out of that, it's about carrying speed through all of these rooty off-camber sections. The riders are going to really try to not touch the brakes, and I think there's a couple of little key points. Once we get into this tight stuff, it's really important to not make mistakes. You can't win the race there, but it's easy to lose it. And it's also a long course. So all the riders have been training all year. They've had more time to train than they ever have. So down here, you're really taking a lot of pedals. And I'm really interested to see where this new section comes in, because it used to go into a bike parky section, kind of a bit more mellow. And this is where the new part starts. So all of this stuff, you can see it's a little bit more fresh. You can see it's new. The riders, you know, the riders from before are not going to have an advantage. This is new to every single rider here. Lots of new bridges down here, and again, this is a fast course.
It's kind of relentless too.
Yeah.
There's not really any areas where they flatten out and are able to tuck in for speed. It's basically rough, rugged with these connection bridges, and I feel like the fact that we've been getting a lot of precipitation, these bridges could be slippery too.
It's so true. I think like the wet bridges are a mountain biker's natural enemy.
Yeah, boy. Yo.
Just good to see Brook ride, like so good.
I mean,
I
that
love
looks
it.
great. So we can gather what we may from watching that on-course view right there, but Gabriel Widmer has also been analyzing this course. He's out there racing. Let's check in with Gabriel Widmer about what these actual changes to the bottom of the course really entail.
What's up guys, it's me, Gabriel Widmer here, and today we're here at Crankworx Innsbruck. We're talking a little bit about the new lower part at the track, and I think it's gonna be pretty interesting for the race on Sunday. We are at the start of the new lower part. That's a pretty interesting left turn. So you're going full speed after a long straight, and then you have to go to the left side. So it's pretty sketchy because it's not a real big turn. It's pretty slippery and everything. For training it's good, but for race day it's a little bit dangerous, but yeah, that's our sport. So the next section of the part is kind of like there are two north shores, and in between of them there's a little rock garden. So it's pretty sketchy because there's a little right corner, so you have to turn your bars to the right, but it's pretty hard because when you get stuck between those rocks, you get over the bars real quick and you have so much speed. So I'm going to try the flat pedals because especially at these flat turns, they're pretty slippy and everything, so you can react faster with the flats. Sometimes it's better if you brake earlier, so you get the better exit speed and you think you're slower. But actually, if you ride against the time, it's faster. I'm really looking forward to racing the track. It's gonna be pretty interesting for everyone. Stay tuned and enjoy.
So now having it explain to you, Elliot, what do you make of that?
Yeah, man, I think one of the things I want all the viewers to think about is how much the track had changed from when we saw it just there all the way to when we saw Brook and Lori.
So it's going to be interesting to see these racers take to this course with the new amendments to it. We're taking a look at our women's start list at the moment right now. And a whole lot of big names we're going to be able to enjoy their race. We're going to find out if TRACEY Hanna can make it 4 in a row. The IXS Innsbruck Downhill, presented by Raiffeisen Club. Top 10 women coming up after the break. IXS Innsbruck Downhill, presented by Raiffeisen Club, just moments away from dropping the top 10 in our elite women's field right now. We've got a great day for racing. Yesterday, different story. We had to start the slopestyle on Friday instead of Saturday because they were forecasting the storm that did arrive on time, causing downhill practice to be canceled. So the sky's clearing today for downhill racing action, and it appears to be a perfect day to give us exactly what we're looking for. And right now we're looking at our start list for our pro women's field. Elliot Jackson.
Yeah, we see a couple of the women racers that we saw in pump track and slalom, but there's a lot of new ones as well. I think one of the cool things about this Innsbruck Downhill is that it gives the European riders a chance to compete at such a high level with all this amazing world-class talent.
And not only the Europeans, but you can see there the last woman to drop will be who we've been talking about. TRACEY Hanna from Australia made it all the way to Europe to compete a week before World Champs are coming at you from Leogang, Austria. But another really exciting name in the field, a name we've been tracking for quite some time now, Vali Hall.
Yeah, man, I just have this image of her riding up I was riding up the gondola and I saw her come over the finish line, just scrub the finish line jump, like insane. Like Marcelo Gutierrez and I were just speechless, and that really shows how skilled she is.
So not only is she a skilled racer, but she's obviously been honing her craft in bike setup. Let's take a look at what tire choice she's using right now for the IXS Innsbruck Downhill.
Hey, I'm Maria and we're here in Innsbruck for the Crankworx Downhill race, and I'm gonna talk about my Maxxis tire choice for this Sunday's race. So that's actually the new prototype shorty, and it's amazing because the knobs are a bit more spread out, so that means we have more clearance. And for the downhill race it's perfect because the mud goes off way quicker, and that helps us, gain more grip. Even when it's like steep and rooty, you still find somewhere at least a bit of grip to slow down and get your best line. So I think it's going to be really muddy, so I'm going to ride the shorty front and in the rear. I run 26 in the front, 28 psi in the back. I hope the tire helps me to get a good spot at the podium, and yeah, so I'm excited.
3, 2, 1.
So Elliot, we've been kind of tracking the dominance of Vali Hall through the junior ranks for quite some time now, and it's like she's been getting closer and closer to reaching that age where she's going to be duking it out with our elite women's field. And if you're TRACEY Hanna right now, what do you think about Vali Hall now lining up in that category instead of last year when she was in the juniors, but we were just showing her because we were foreshadowing what was its imminent?
Right. I think one of the interesting thing was because there was so much hype, people were comparing her times. There was actually one race, I think it might have been Leger, where she had the fastest time of the weekend from all the women in all categories. And so now it'll be about how does she handle that mentally? You know, can she race in that same class and still perform at the same level?
Yeah, it's kind of hard having a lot of hype behind you, so that's going to be really fun to track today as we're getting closer and closer to dropping our pro women's field. I'm going to take this opportunity right now to join the third member of our team. All you mountain bikers fans out there know Casey Brown. Casey, are you with us?
Hey Cam, how's it going?
What up? We're good, Casey. This is the first time we've been joining somebody in via webcam who's actually on the same time zone as us. So what up? You had to get up early this morning to watch this racing action. I'm sure you're excited. Are you a little bit jealous? Because if it weren't for this pandemic and the travel ban, I know you'd be there.
Oh yeah, it'd be amazing to be in Europe right now. But yeah, we're chilling in Canada and it's all good. We've got lots of fun trails to ride this fall. So yeah, fun to watch.
It's been fun to watch you on the Cliff Crankworx Summer Series earlier on this summer, and it's going to be great to have you join us for the broadcast. I'm pretty sure we're getting really close to dropping our first athlete, so stick with us, and we're going to be bringing you in for some pro analysis, because I know that when it comes to experience on this course, you've got some of that, and so it's going to be fun to tap you in for some of this action. I believe the first racer we're going to have on course is Mathilde Bernard, who's been very busy this week. She's already been picking up some medals.
Yeah, we saw all the insane bike skill in pump track and slalom. Casey, what is the difference, between kind of pumping a downhill bike and pumping a slalom bike?
Well, the thing is, you kind of know where to pump on a slalom bike because you're on a kind of a manicured track. On a downhill track, you have all these rocks and rolls, and there's a very wide array of places where you can pump or you can pedal. So I think it comes down to your knowledge of the track and knowing where you can gain those little momentums.
For sure, and this is interesting to see as well because Mathilde Bernard burst onto the Crankworx scene in our eyes during a pump track race, and you could tell just by the gear she was running and the skills she had that she came from a BMX background. But time and time again, we see pump track at Crankworx being this gateway to bring in new talent into the world of mountain biking. So it's great to see Mathilde throwing the leg over the downhill bike. She's been apparently doing a lot more of that the last couple of seasons, hasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, she looks amazing. She really looks like she is comfortable on the downhill bike. And is able to push. Even though she might make a couple little mistakes, I think the more important thing is, are you able to, take the risk? And I think if you're able to take the risk, that means that you have some confidence.
While watching the course preview, we were commenting that this course seems relentless, kind of nonstop action, no opportunity to really catch your breath. And we saw Mathilde with a couple near crashes there where she saved both of them. But this will be interesting to see where she slots in. And Mathilde Bernard with some issues up there, saving some crashes, putting feet down. She will not slot into that hot seat as we focus our attention back up to the top of the course where Carolyn Garrick has dropped in.
Yeah, and the Garrick twins are such mainstays in the community. How would you kind of describe Carolyn, Casey?
Oh, Carolyn's amazing. I've raced at EWS with her for a few years, and yeah, she's such a strong rider and so like collected on her bikes. Yeah, really great rider to watch.
Yeah, and she comes from that EWS background. She's been racing a ton of that lately, and you can see her kind of taking some pedals there instead of tucking like Mathilde was doing. And one of the things that I think a lot of the riders are gonna think about is tire choice. Casey, like when you see a little bit of rain coming down, how do you know if you should switch to some spikes or keep dry tires?
Yeah, it's a tough one too, because sometimes you have a lot of rock on the course and you don't want to have those longer mud spikes on. So it's about finding balance and what's going to work for the majority of the course and what you can kind of get away with. Yeah, it looks like there's been some precipitation, so maybe some mud tires as a go here.
I would be a little bit nervous with all the wood.
For sure, yeah. There's the wood parts and then the little rock gardens and stuff I'm seeing. So that could be interesting on those those mud tires.
So the run from Carolyn Garrick, a smooth run. A little bit off pace right there, but slotting into second position, just a little bit over 2 seconds behind the top spot right now, belonging to Cook. And now, next rider on course will be Noga Coram.
Yeah, and Noga also from that EWS background. You know, she has definitely got the fitness and is hitting this upper section so fast. You can really, you know, it's really interesting to see some of the top riders go because they start pedaling in places that you wouldn't expect. Always like get to the bottom of the track and you're like, wait a second, I wasn't doing that. Probably should have been doing that.
Now, Casey, it's really interesting. It's really interesting, Casey, to start watching the transition from enduro to downhill. When enduro started, it was kind of like a great place for former downhill racers to transition into. Now you're seeing that reverse. You're well versed in racing both of those disciplines. What do you make of this transition the opposite direction from enduro to downhill, like Noga Coram is doing?
Well, I think with enduro, you get so much more time racing. So in turn, you do get a lot more experience in a short amount of time racing that discipline. So yeah, between the tape time yeah, she's going to be super experienced between the tape, and I mean, racing enduro, you have to be super fit for it. So yeah, she'll be throwing in some pedal strokes, and she's got a lot of power in those little legs of hers. Noga's an amazing rider.
Well, it's really fun to watch racers do that reverse transition, like we saw Martin Mays, the past couple of seasons, proving that it's very possible to do both. And Noga Coram proving the same right now as she slots into the top spot by over 3 seconds. Your new leader, Noga Coram.
Yeah, that is amazing. She was pinned at the bottom. I love seeing that, foot out, just sliding it into the corners. I think that's such a cool thing. Such a cool thing.
Well, things are absolutely heating up right now as Noga Coram slots into the lead. Making room right now for Millie Johnset to hopefully continue to ramp things up right here. She would love to do the same.
Yeah, this is her first year elite. And so, also you see that national champs jersey on there. And one of the things I always think is really interesting, we're talking about it with Valley Hole. Millie is in the same kind of age group as Valley. Casey, did you race juniors? What is that transition like?
I actually didn't race junior. I was a free rider up until I was like 22. So yeah, that transition I'm not totally aware of, but I mean, it looks like it must be quite a mental game going from being at the top of a certain class and then going into being kind of the underdog and fighting your way to the top again. It could be quite the transition.
Yeah, I always think it's super interesting because in juniors you're kind of expected to win, and especially in elite, it's more. The pressure goes off a lot of time where it can kind of go both ways, right? Like you see some riders who try to have that overconfidence coming into elite, and then you see some riders where it's like, okay, this is my first year elite, I'm just going to learn because things are done a lot different. You have to train harder, you have to work on your bike more. There's a lot of
it's definitely different, and I think it's a transition that everyone's going to be watching here today.
So Millie Johnset not able to slot into the lead. Quite a ways off pace right here, but we'll continue to track the progress of that first year elite racer as we focus our attention back up to the top to see our next rider on course running the enduro bike, Ella Connolly. This will be interesting.
Casey, I feel like you have a ton of experience running enduro bike for downhill.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a thing of mine. Occasionally I'll be tossed onto the enduro bike for a downhill race, and it's sometimes it works out all right, it's a more responsive bike. I don't know. When I first started racing, it's all I had, so that's what I rode. But Yeah, I think there could be some benefits here on the enduro bike. They're way more peppy, so you can almost air over more stuff when you have an enduro bike because they're a little bit more responsive. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like this bottom section especially is a ton of these 180 flat turns. You see her that's where that downhill bike would have been a little bit nicer to have, but
Yeah.
even though she's getting a little wild, she's also carrying some speed.
Yeah, mad respect for that. Holy moly.
Yeah, I don't know. You're very, very optimistic there, Elliot. I'm looking at this course thinking this is not a great course to be running a trail bike on, but you know what? The clock doesn't lie. Ella Connolly working her way toward the final section of the course. We will soon know. She's got a little bit of room to work with here.
A little wild, but a little fast.
Not going to be enough for Ella Connolly, but she does slot into second place, 1.3 back. So a very respectable ride out of Ella Connolly from Great Britain. But we saw Carolyn Garrick drop in just a few riders ago. Casey was commenting on her, and guess what? The second half of the Garrick sisters is about ready to drop in. Anita Garrick on the full downhill rig. I would imagine this is far more suited. Let's see if she can shake up the podium right now.
Yeah, this, I am not gonna lie, I would rather have a downhill bike.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a couch.
Right. I'm super down for couches. Been sitting on them a lot lately.
For sure.
It's interesting though as well because this track has gotten much faster. I talked about it in the course preview where there's a lot of these really long straights, and I think one of the things to think about, we talked about pumping, is how can you make sure that you're carrying speed. I think the riders that you see execute this bottom section will not be pedaling quite as much if they can really find their pumps, but it's difficult.
Yeah, pumping is definitely more effective a lot of the time.
Oh, well, Anita Garrick having some issues on course and unfortunately being caught by our cameras. She's back on, she's riding. That's not going to help. And, you know, we're looking at the start list right now, how many racers we have to go who can shake it up. There are 4 more. Anita Garrick is trying to salvage this run right now.
Oh, it's always so difficult to get back going after a crash when she first got back going. So you're having a little bit of trouble getting clipped in. You really want to make up that time. You're thinking about all the time you lost. So many things that are going through your head that are not ideal.
Well, Anita Garrick obviously not going to shake up the podium there with those issues we saw, but with 4 more racers to go, the next racer is one we're very excited to see finally into the elite ranks right now. This is going to be Valley Hall. Let's take a look at what bike she's riding, how she has it set up.
Hey guys, I'm Valley Hall and that's my downhill bike. It's a YT2S frame. I run RockShox Boxer in the front and the RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate Shock in the back. I think I run my suspension quite firm, trying not to change a lot and keep the right suspension for this week because I think with the rain it's going to be quite similar to Leogang. I also run Maxxis tires on DT Swiss rims, SRAM drivetrain, Creative bar, SRAM code, brakes, and that's it.
So Valley Hall, the chosen one to shake up the pro women's ranks in professional downhill racing. A strange season for her first year in elite. So this is the big moment we've been waiting for years to see her compete at the top level. The Austrian on course here in Innsbruck.
Yeah, and one of the things I want everyone to take a look at is just how much speed she carries everywhere. I think it's just an average speed. You saw some riders pedaling there. Valley was able to just carry speed, do some hops, and really just keep her average speed up.
Casey, what do you think it is? I mean, she's just floating through this run right now. It just seems to, these skills are just like inherent, like she was born with them. Do you think she represents the new wave of women's talent in downhill? Because all the young girls are going to be looking up to the way she rides a bike for years.
Yeah, I think Valley has a very desirable way of riding a bike. For she's super stylish on a bike, and I think when you have that good of style and you feel that good on your bike, I mean, a lot of women look up to that and want to replicate it, and I think she'll be bringing a lot of people into mountain biking just because she looks so damn good on a bike.
It's true. So the time to beat right now, 3:21. The rider occupying that hot seat is Israel's Noga Koram as we track the progress of Valley Hall's burst onto the scene of professional women's downhill racing. This is looking like it's going to go into the top spot, but anything can happen here with a little bit of course left.
Yeah, man, she is just executes everything so well. It's amazing.
Wow, look at that. I mean, this is exactly what we would have expected. So easy to have a mistake with all the pressure on this debut, but Valley Hall just unshakable, going into the lead by over 9 seconds. This is the type of run that we may be talking about for a while now as she emerges onto the scene. Let's take a look back and savor some of these moments.
Yeah, that's crazy cool. Just really using the back of the bike to turn. You saw her, there's not much of a rut there, so she actually used one of the bumps to put her back end out around that flat turn.
So what a time to debut in the elite category. Valley Hall, the Austrian racer, she gets to try to take the win here at Innsbruck. We've got 3 more racers to go, and then just in a few days' time, she'll be at Leogang trying to grab a world championship on home turf. So potentially legendary moments here for this young racer, Valley Hall, as she gets comfortable in that hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about what it does mentally for her and what it does mentally for the other riders. Like if she could come out and, you know, smoke everyone, you have the reigning World Cup overall champion with TRACEY Hanna here. And if she could do that going into World Championships, it would mean a lot.
Well, TRACEY Hanna 3 riders away as Italy's Eleonora Farina warms up in the start gate. She's the next racer with an opportunity to try to show Valley Hall, hey, new kid, get out of that hot seat.
Yeah, and you know, Eleonora is one of the people that always has a smile on her face at the races. Really enjoy seeing her at the World Cup races, Italian national champion. You know, Casey, what is it like kind of transitioning from a World Cup to a Crankworx? Is it more serious, less serious?
Yeah, it's definitely a different game. Like World Cups, you have every single heavy hitter there that is able to be there, and it's pretty insane dropping into a World Cup run. Crankworx is definitely a lot more fun in my eyes. You're beside a lot of people. You can be a little bit more casual about it, but definitely there's a lot of competition, and when it comes down to it, the tracks are amazing at Crankworx, and they're some of the best in the whole circuit. So, yeah, I think Crankworx is really good for the World Cup racers for getting into it, especially with the race coming up next week. That's going to be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it looks like we see her taking that inside line. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, Crankworx, some of my best runs have come from Crankworx because of that, because it's a little bit more chilled and I feel like I can just let it go and have this like amazing run.
Yeah. Yeah, you can
solid
definitely.
Solid performance out of Farina. They're not enough to take that top spot, but just to think, you know, that was a great run. She's still really far back from Valley Hall, but let's take a look back at some slow-mo replays from this run.
One of the things that Eleonora tried to do was shave off a bit of distance here at the bottom. Saw her take that inside lines. It's always a trade-off between distance and speed. Either you take the outside and kind of rail it, not let off the brakes, or you can check up, go inside, shave off some distance. And it's kind of one of the things that riders will look for on a track walk or during practice.
Valley Hall holds her ground in that hot seat right now, and we talk about the fact that World Champs is coming up also taking place in Austria. And the next racer we have on course is somebody who knows a little thing or two about what it's like to race world champs. She's also won world championships. Morgan Schar coming up next.
Yeah, Morgan's been like on a winning streak. She won an EWS, she won the slalom. Like, I think it's just kind of her weekend, her week, her year.
Well, with 2 racers to go, we've got 2 very formidable opponents for Valley Hall here. A former world champ, Morgan Schar, on course. And of course, the last racer we will have is the undefeated TRACEY Hannah, who has not lost a Crankworx race on this course. So this should be a good couple of runs for you race fans out there.
I mean, and Morgan rides bars that are super wide. Reminds me of the New Zealanders when they use bar extenders. Maybe that was probably you, Casey.
No way. Not with these narrow shoulders.
What is that? What do you? I heard that that you want your bars to be shoulder width. Is that something that you would try to do?
No, I kind of just try and keep it consistent throughout all my bikes. I run a 770 on most of my bikes, which might seem a little bit wide, but it works for me. Definitely cut them down though.
The 800s with the 20 mil extenders.
Yeah, hard.
So 3:12, the time to beat. Held by Valley Hall. Morgan Schar working her way toward the bottom of the course. She's gonna go outside that time. So this is going to be a face-off between the undefeated TRACEY Hannah and the new talent bursting onto the scene, Valley Hall.
Yeah, still in a, even though she's 6 seconds back, she's still in second place. And we should mention too that world championship that Morgan got did come from Leo Gang. So I know that she's going to be trying to peak for that race. And here, I think it's really interesting to see, how are the riders feeling? Because at this point in the run, you are tired. Like, there's been a whole track before this. The track is really physical, really pedally, and that bottom, if you get it wrong, it's also even more tiring because you don't have that flow.
So Valley Hall knows what it's like to have pressure as the junior coming in first year elite, but this next racer knows the pressure of being undefeated on the course. Let's hear it straight from the champ, TRACEY Hannah, how she's feeling coming into this run.
My personal drive is I want to be the best. I want to be able to do something that I'm really good at and be really good at it. And downhill, specifically, is so hard to be perfect in every race, to get the perfect balance of, like you said, fear, fitness, training, resting, recovering, racing. It's such a fine balance, and mentally, physically, you need so many components to go into the big pot that I think I just love the challenge of competition, and that's what drives me to keep going.
Well, it's a good thing TRACEY Hannah loves the challenge, because that's exactly what she has on her hands right now as Valley Hall holds on to the time to beat. TRACEY Hannah looking to make it 4 in a row in Innsbruck.
Yeah, you can tell. I love seeing that TRACEY still has this aggressive style that she had last year. She's kept that confidence. I saw her riding in New Zealand earlier this year, doing some testing, and it felt like she wouldn't miss a beat. She is right there, so you're gapping off of that. She's just one of those riders that it always feels like she's making steps forward and never making steps back.
Oh, look at this. Valley Hall taking a look at the screen, biting her fingernails. Casey, you know what it's like to be sitting in that hot seat.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's way easier to be the hunter than to be hunted, let me tell you.
That's a good way to put it. TRACEY Hannah doing her best to hunt down this win right now. She had a huge gap between her and the second place rider last year, but right now it is not going to be so easy. The time to beat 3:12. TRACEY Hannah inching closer to that finish line. Wow, Valley Hall does it, sweeps the rug out from under TRACEY Hanna. TRACEY so close, less than a second behind the youngster who is now on the quest to dominate the women's field for who knows how long. Valley Hall takes the gold medal.
She has got to feel good. Like the first race out, and she is just on fire.
Well, a goosebump moment as we're finally getting to see what we had, been hinted at for so long. We kept hearing about this young rider out of Austria. I mean, I feel like 3 years ago, people were saying, you know what, this is going to be the one. And yeah, the stars are aligning right now as she takes the win here in Innsbruck. Let's take a look back at this run that was so close from TRACEY Hanna, no longer undefeated on this Crankworx Innsbruck downhill course.
Man, it's crazy, right? After 3 minutes, you're less than a second back. As a rider, you go back over this run so many times in your head. If you would have pedaled here, pumped this, not made that little mistake, not brake so much. So it's gonna give her a ton of motivation going on this year.
Well, Valley, congratulations on this win. We've been hearing about you for a long time. We watched your run as you were racing juniors last year. It's got to be an amazing moment for you right now. Do you feel like this momentum is just the boost of confidence you need going into World Champs next?
Well, I mean, it's amazing. It's been just 1 year of not knowing if my preparation is going on well or not, or if I'm like right on it or like totally far off of the elite. So yeah, first race and then next week World Champs. So yeah, I think now I have a bit of motivation and I know it's not wrong what I did, and it's just super stoked, eh?
Yeah, Valley, one of the things I was noticing is that you weren't pedaling as much as you were pumping. How do you make that decision?
Well, I guess I'm just lazy. Nah, I don't know. I think I like to ride pump track, and I feel like I'm faster when I'm pumping and like staying low in the bike than like, spinning my lungs out. Yeah.
Well, Valley, after a long, strange season of wondering where you stack up, this has to be an amazing moment seeing that #1 next to your name. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you at World Champs.
Thank you so much.
What a performance there, Elliot, out of the young Austrian racer. To take that big elite class win on home turf has to be amazing. Casey Brown, I got to extend a big thank you to you for waking up early and joining us here, Casey. And yeah, I don't know, get some coffee or go back to sleep.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of the racing.
All right, we'll see you around, Casey. So men's category coming up next, Elliot. We've got a whole cast of characters in our men's top 20. Guys like Fabio Widmer, Adrian Larone, and of course, Laurie Greenland and Brook Macdonald will be wrapping up our top 20 men's elite field in the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay right where you are here at Crankworx Innsbruck.
3, 2.
Action. It's the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. We just saw an impressive win from Valley Hall in the women's category there, and that sets the stage for what we have in our hands next, which is the top 20 men live from Innsbruck, Austria. Beautiful day for downhill racing, and it wouldn't be a Crankworx downhill race if we didn't join in our good friend Andrew Needling joining us live via webcam from South Africa. How's it going, my man?
Guys, it was so good. I was an absolute fan. I actually left my computer and watched it on Red Bull TV big screen, and you guys did a great job. And it was nice to hear from Casey and hear her insights. Unfortunately, we couldn't see a race. And how exciting you could have predicted that we would have potentially had Valley Hall take her first big international win in front of us. And in the broadcast in Crankworx, so I think we're honored. Obviously, TRACEY, I think she probably knew this time was going to come, but maybe hoping not so quickly.
Definitely a historic moment right there for Valley Hall, and definitely a moment that will light the fire underneath TRACEY Hanna for World Champs coming up. So that was really fun to watch, and guess what? It's not even close to being over. We got the top 20 men about ready to take to the course right now. And Andrew, I'm sure you've been watching the course preview and that little breakdown from Gabriel Widmer explaining the new changes here. And here's a look at who we're going to be able to see taking to this course. What names are standing out for you, Andrew Needling?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at some of the results, the guys that have already done their race, and there's some names that I can attest to. There's some South Africans that have been over there. But, you know, down the tail end of this field, you know, you've got the likes of Eddie Masters. He was second year last year. Obviously, you guys have been speaking about Brook Macdonald. I'm so excited. I'm privileged to be able to announce his return to racing. But let's not forget someone like Mick Hanna, who won back in Rotorua, which feels like, I don't know, a decade ago, but that was this year. So he's technically the man on form, if you want to throw that out there. But I know he likes the course, and I think the new part of the course maybe doesn't suit him, but definitely the top half. Now that it's more hard pack and you have to pump and carry a lot of speed, Mick Hanna is great at that.
So it's great to be back into racing right now. We have 4 out of the 5 top racers from last year, which is surprising since there's so many missing from the field with, you know, the travel bans and such. But you know what? It's not the first bit of racing we've seen in the 2020 season. Crankworx was able to put together the Cliff Crankworx Summer Series in British Columbia. It was a fantastic 3 weeks of racing action. Let's take a look at some highlights.
Okay, end tape for 135.
It's really cool that we have such a good mix of people. We have some really established racers, but then we also have these new up-and-comers. We can kind of come together on a more casual level, and I think it's a really cool opportunity for everyone to learn from each other and to get to know each other a bit better.
The tracks are super cool. They're almost like European style, except with flow. So they're sick. 1 minute back. Oh my God! I just had a lot of fun today. Like, same as last week, it's just so sick.
Getting to see all the race athletes is like one of my favorite things. It's like refreshing to be around all these like new athletes, kinda, but ones that I watch from a distance usually.
This stuff's just really fun because you're just out there riding your bike, and that's sort of the best thing out there. 45 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So us race fans owe a lot to Crankworx for being able to pull together some events for us to be able to whet our appetite in a season that has been pretty sparse on racing. Cliff Crankworx Summer Series was fantastic. I figured that would be the last we'd see from Crankworx for the year. But after that ended, we announced that we would be right here in Innsbruck, Austria. Well, maybe not physically, as we're joining from a studio in Santa Monica, California. But this is the moment we've been waiting for, the men's downhill, the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. As I mentioned moments ago, we have 4 out of the top 5 in the men's field taking to the course today. And of course, it wouldn't be Innsbruck without Innsbruck's own Fabio Widmer, a former Austrian downhill national champion and officially the most famous mountain biker in the world with, I don't know, millions and millions of YouTube subscribers and Instagram followers. You know him for his web videos, but he's also an accomplished downhill racer. He'll be the first trying to grab that hot seat spot that we'll see on course.
Dude, I love the like steeds everywhere. He's just looks like he's just playing around on the bike, and it's pretty incredible how many things he can do. Right down a hill backwards.
Oh! Wow. All right. Well, he's really good at producing viral clips, and he chose a moment while right on camera to give us something to look at. That was a crazy over the bars moment from Fabio Widmer.
There's a little, so we saw the women kind of going in one of the holes, and Fabio tried to jump over it and landed a bit on the side went a bit off the side, and he's all good.
Andrew, we talked about how the course is wet, cancellation of practice yesterday. We've kind of just been waiting for a moment like that to happen. How slippery is this course looking right now? And the fact that they're going to be pushing so hard with those wet bridges, it's kind of volatile right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one thing having a slippery course, but we've got kind of varying terrain and it's drying out as the riders are kind of coming down this course. You know, Brook's going to take me a little bit drier than Fabio had there, and that's the problem when it's unpredictable like that. Fabio obviously felt there was pretty good grip. He went for a hop, and you could see he just slid just before the bridge, and then there's no recovering from that. It's literally like hitting an ice patch.
So Fabio Wimmer delivering what we'd expect from him, an entertaining moment. And now let's see if a former king of Crankworx can deliver more of what we've seen so far this week. A guy who's got 2 medals already to be packed in his bike bag to head back home to France. Now looking to get another medal from the downhill, Adrien Lerone. So we're seeing on screen right now Adrien Lerone, a guy who was looking to do what nobody else has done in the 2020 season, which is repeat on a King of Crankworx title. The way we've seen him be on form this week, if this weren't a strange season with canceled events, he just might have done it. Newfound focus, newfound chill. Unfortunately, a season where there will not be a King and Queen of Crankworx crown awarded, but Adrien Lerone still making the most of it. He picked up a medal in dual slalom, a medal in pump track. And let's see, the time to beat 2:52 right now from Austria's Kolb. Adrien Lerone, still a lot of course to go, is not going to be able to slot into that spot.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to highlight with Adrien is just how much he's improved. He doesn't come from a downhill background, and you know, when he first started on the Crankworx World Tour, he was a really just pump track and slalom specialist, but to be able to ride a course like this, it's no joke. You see how slippery it is, and I just, you know, for him to slot into 5th place now is really, really incredible.
So a good ride there for the all-around talent, Adrien Lerone. And more of the same in the start gate right now, Andrew Needling. We've got Chaos Seagrave, and when we talk about somebody who's got a widespread talent base, you got to talk about this guy, Chaos Seagrave.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm just so jealous of how skilled he is on all aspects of riding and bikes, and it often frustrates a racer. I think me and Elliot can think, you know, we wish we had that skill when we were racing. We could have really stuck to one thing. But Chaos and the youngsters these days, him and Cade Edwards, they remind me of a young Brendan Fairclough, when he was so good at racing, maybe could have been better, but that doesn't mean he had to be. He you know, these riders want to try tricks, they want to push the limits, see what's possible on a bike. We see him down in South Africa at Darkfest, those big jumps. I saw him doing kind of look back 360s as far as I know in the dual speed and style. So it's unbelievable to see. But let's not forget, Chaos Seagrave was an incredible junior racer at a World Cup level. So when he does set his mind to racing, he can do it. It just depends on the day for him.
Well, I'm sure he's excited to be between the tape right now. Elliot, have you been watching some of these racers that Andrew's talking about, the guys who can do so much more than just race? With so many canceled races this season, guys like Chaos and Cade and so many others pretty much turned into free riders, producing content, learning tricks, crazy stuff they've been doing, and then you forget because there hasn't been races for so long. Oh yeah, they're world-class downhill racers. We've been waiting for this moment to see Chaos back on course.
It's so true. I mean, like we talk about like getting the quarantine bod. I feel like Chaos got the quarantine tricks. Like he can do pretty much anything. You see him backflipping 360s, like just doing everything.
So Kolb dodging a bullet right there. Chaos Seagrave not able to edge close to that top time, held by the Austrian. And
that's the kind of what we saw Fabio kind of mess up on, Chaos going over that stump instead of trying to go around it.
So Harry Malloy, 29 years of age, the next rider with a chance to shake things up in the elite men's field. What do you know about Harry, Elliott?
Yeah, he's actually the team manager of that FS team. So, you know, he's a rider and he's got extra duties, kind of like, you know, we think of people at home having the day job plus trying to ride their bike as fast as they can. You know, Needles, you've kind of seen this. How does that affect a rider when they're having to do 2 jobs like that?
I mean, you would expect it to have a little bit of a negative effect, but then Bernard Kerr throws, you know, kind of an exception to that statement. But I do think it's tough, you know. Harry's obviously doing practice, wanting to focus on himself, almost missing that bridge. And then after practice, he's got to maybe deal with some fires that the parts haven't arrived for the team, or some emails and things like that. So depending on your personality, it's a real challenge to be able to race a bike well and run a team manager. It's a pretty selfless job. So Harry's got a lot of experience. He's got some good British results. We've actually seen him at quite a few of our Crankworx events, and it's great to see him still wanting to race, but he's actually giving other people a helping hand and maybe nurturing some younger riders.
So Austria's Kolb still holding on to the top time with that 2:52. Harry Malloy not able to challenge that time, but slotting into a podium spot right now with a lot of riders to go. Doubtful he'll hold on to that, because look at this list of racers we have coming up. Lucas Cruz will be the next racer on course, the youngster out of Canada. We were reminiscing about the Cliff Crankworx Summer Series that took place earlier. Lucas Cruz definitely impressing a lot there, and it's impressive to see that he's been able to jump through the hoops, make it all the way across the pond. I'm sure World Champs is on his hit list here next week.
Yeah, man, watching those Summer Series highlights just takes me back. And, you know, one of the things you think about is Lucas probably has more races under his belt this year than anyone else. So I'm wondering if this is going to... Man, it is actually crazy as a rider to look back at some of these moments of bars coming about half an inch away from trees. So I think that's one of the things you would think about when you do have that confidence, is just being able to hit those lines.
Andrew, we're noticing just an added degree of aggression out of Lucas Cruz right here, choosing not to sit as much as the other riders in that flat section, one of the only flat sections. I mean, what do you make of this? Do you think we're going to be able to see him slot into the lead now?
It's looking like he could be giving it a good shot. Lucas Cruz, I mean, let's not forget, he's the Canadian Open junior winner last year, so he's had some great results at Crankworx. He's had a Junior World Cup podium. This is a potential real, you know, threat for the future. He's early in his elite career here, but Lucas Cruz is very aggressive. You can see he's choosing to pedal a lot. He's maybe using a little different technique to Valentini Hall, but you know, it's proving to be within touch.
Perhaps a couple issues off screen that we weren't able to see right now, or perhaps just hinting at how blistering that run was from Kolb. I mean, we see that Kolb is from Austria. Maybe he's been practicing on this course, because he's dodging some real heavy bullets right now. Lucas Cruz not able to shake things up.
Yeah, and Kolb's one of those dudes who can really put it together. He's been on the World Cup circuit for a long time, and has that experience.
Well, Mike Jones, next racer out of Britain, with an opportunity to take it away from Austria's Kolb right now.
And, you know, we see the rain starting to come down a little bit. Needles, this track looks like it has a little bit of gaps here and there. How do you decide as a rider which gap to hit? How do you know if it's going to be too slippery or, you know, that it's on?
Yeah, I mean, you saw Mike there. He's doing a little bit of gap up and over. You know, hopefully the squarer the route is, so if you're going a straight line, hopefully that route is pretty perpendicular. Even if it's raining, that's going to be fine. The more angle the routes are at your front wheel, then you're going to have to start being hesitant. But I was speaking to Mick Hanna, who we'll see later, and these gaps and the timing of the gaps, if you go for a gap and you kind of over jump it, which you think is the safe way to do it, you might mess up, you know, 50 meters of straight after that. So that's going to be key, is getting that top off course precise.
Yeah, and Mike's one of those riders. We saw him kind of gapping. We see a lot of riders kind of double there in that center section, and Mike did another line. I remember couple of years ago in Lourdes in France, he had this gap that was just insane. Ended up getting second there, so he really knows how to ride these kind of tracks.
So Mike Jones going into second place, 2.4 back with 16 racers to go. Now, Andrew, you talked about those gaps. Let's take a look back, some replays from those moments you were talking about, opportunities to make up some flow and save some speed.
Yeah, you can see him coming off that bridge. He's really jumping as far as he can to try get the second backside, and that's setting him up to carry momentum all the way through there. And this is a tricky section, Elliot. I mean, these are sometimes way harder than a gnarly course to ride those flat turns hard.
Yeah, right. You see some of the riders being able to stay two-footed there. Wouldn't be able to do that myself, but looks like some people are.
Jack Reading, wow, you really get a sense when you hit that backlit angle how the rain is coming down. Look, a lot of aggression out of Jack Reading.
Man, it's you know, I mean, I think everyone at home, including me, you have those sketchy moments and you're like, maybe I should dial it back, and you see these guys just turn it up after that.
Oh, wow. So many riders coming close to missing that bridge.
It's actually amazing, you know, if you were to slow-mo that bridge kind of shot, you'd see people's tires coming probably about an inch. Needles, what do you do mentally to recover from a mistake as a downhill rider?
Well, I mean, that comes with experience, you know, and being these guys at the top of the sport. I think when you practice really well and you do practice runs that you push through a mistake, maybe even when you're at home, not always stopping when you make a mistake, realizing that just because you've made a mistake, you know, you've just got to get back in the present because there's another jump or turn coming. So you've got to just focus on the present and what's in front of your wheel after the mistake.
Jack Reading so close right there. Still 2 seconds back, but we're going to have to start referring to this as Fabio's bridge. We saw Fabio Widmer miss his bridge, somersault into the hole, but Jack Reading just by inches. We talk about hitting your lines being so important, especially when there's a deep trench on the rider's right side. But rain starting to fall here in Innsbruck. We've been talking about how the course will just continue to get drier and drier. That is, unless the water keeps falling.
It's so true, and I mean, this is one of those times where you have it's sunny. So did the riders remember to take another set of goggles up? You know, I don't see a lot of tear-offs on the goggles or roll-offs, so it's definitely going to be one of those things where, you know, do the riders actually have vision?
Well, the youngster on course, just 21 years of age, Joe Breeden.
Yeah, he's a hot property for the future, Joe Breeden. He was 4th back in ROTORUA, you know, at the early parts of the year in March, but he did have a little bobble crash, so he was showing a lot of speed. First year on Polygon, you are the ultimate professional. I know he trains with Alan Milway, who Greg Menard has actually picked up himself. Alan has worked with the likes of G. Athens and Danny Hart, myself, not to put myself in the leagues of Greg Menard or anything like that, but I do know what a rigorous training program, but how professional it is.
What kind of stuff would you do?
Oh, you know, it actually pains me to think back, but I think the way Alan trains is really efficient. He thinks about a holistic way of packaging a rider, and it's not just power or fitness. He also thinks about skill work and all those things and builds a whole package for you.
Joe Breeden, the closest we've seen so far to threatening that time of Kolb, going into second place right there, but by a tighter margin. Now let's take a look back at these gap sections we were talking about. This is one where we can really gauge how on point a racer is. He's able to squeeze some pedals in there, isn't he, Andrew?
Yeah. I mean, like I say, Joe Breeden, he's really good on a bike. I like his technique, and if you're not pumping that technique, Elliot's been talking about a lot, if you can't find flow like that and it is too flat, you've got to be on the pedals. And I agree with him. Sometimes you look back at a race and go, man, I missed the pedal stroke there. Even one pedal stroke can help you gain, you know, half a second in a straight.
And we were talking to Casey about this trail bike. Needles, what do you kind of make of riding a trail bike versus downhill bike?
Look, I think the riders that we do see riding their trail bike are EWS specialists, so there's that. They're used to the bike. Sam Hill did it at a World Champs before. So in theory, he might not believe it's the fastest bike on track, but for him, he's so used to the trail bike, how it reacts, you know, how far he can lead it over, how he can push it. So that's often why that decision gets made, not because he feels an enduro bike is faster than a downhill bike.
So Windmaster's on course right now, riding that enduro race bike. His brother was second here last year, and judging by these splits, he's close.
Yeah, and this bottom part is really he's looking really fast, being able to kind of throw this bike around. Win is one of the most fit people you will ever see in your life. So all of these pedals, you know, are going to be super strong, and being able to kind of throw the trail bike around is going to help.
Well, the fact that he's close on time in the tech bits and he's got a bit of pedaling to go here toward the line is not going to be enough for Windmasters. He slots into 7th place. Here we go. It's Sunday, but a little Wheelie Wednesday action for you in the Finnish corral.
A little bit of back wheel.
So the next rider who we'll see warming up in the start gate, Bernard Kerr, a rider who's done well here in the past with a 5th place in 2018. He's a former king of Crankworx. You mentioned before, also a team manager. This guy, he's got so much energy. He puts so much on his plate and never looks fazed by it when he's on course. He leaves it all out there between the tape.
Yeah, it's just one of those riders that you just incredibly skilled. See there, he's running the DHRs, front and rear, 24, 28. He's been running that for bloody, I don't even know, 7, 8 years now. He's also one of the people that we'll see going for a world championship in Leogang next week. He's got the podium there, so you know he can ride, and it's just the matter of if he gets that run. Different line there, actually. So everyone else is kind of waiting and hopping, either going over the route. We saw him hop into that lift that everyone else was, way smoother and way safer.
Yeah, Bernard Kerr, I mean, he is one of the few that can make so much speed from the ground where others maybe struggle. So you saw it at the top. I mean, there were minimal pedal strokes, but you could just see he was really pumping and seeing how much ground speed he could gain. Yeah, Bernard Kerr is always impressing me how much he puts on his plate, but he's really coming to his own in downhill and then had a bit of an injury. So he's just struggling to find that World Cup podium speed.
Bernard Kerr slotting into 3rd place, back by 1.3. They're getting closer.
Man, it's so amazing to think, you know, you do a 3-minute course and it's like, yeah, I was behind by, you know, 1.3, but I'm in 3rd, so I'm half a second back. It's just, it's so tight.
14 racers to go, of course. We're excited to see our last racer on course, which will be Brook Macdonald, the man who won here last year. We're getting closer and closer to the fastest racers on our lineup. The next one to challenge that time, Charlie Hatton.
And Charlie's on actually the Atherton team here, riding that Atherton bike. One of the things I always think about Needles is, you know, what does that do? How does it feel to be on a team where you have a legend on your team? Is that a bonus? You know, does that bring you confidence, or how would you feel about that?
Yeah, it obviously raises the expectations that you put on yourself. And there we have it. Bit of a crash. That's a super tricky turn. Just too aggressive there. Shame. So we were speaking about expectations. He would have wanted to be doing well here. But what it can do, especially when a youngster, you're looking up to the likes of G. Atherton, and you can just mimic whatever he does for preparation, bike testing. You can basically make fewer mistakes yourself and just learn from someone that's been there, done that.
So Charlie Hatton going down on camera. Unfortunately, it seems like all these racers, well, maybe fortunately for entertainment value, they seem to be having their big crashes on screen.
It really does show, you know, how difficult the course is. And that was one of those crashes where you don't want to brake, but being able to, you know, that rut isn't a perfect, you know, arc. It's not like you're going around a perfect circle. So if you turn a little bit too much, we saw the tires just get a little bit further inside, sliding out there and kind of what I call reaching for the berm, where your tires are further inside than the actual curve.
Well, you guys talking about Charlie Hatton being on the Atherton bikes. We will see G. Atherton just in 2 riders. Of course, the well-decorated British downhill racer, former world champ, but his young gun on the team, as we look back right now, going down, losing a lot of time, focusing on next week's world champs. But now Jacob Dixon, the Irish racer, on course.
That's your boy, Jacob. He's got that style, just super low, super, you know, kind of like a, I don't even know, like a wombat. I don't even know. He just looks fast.
And Elliot, what was a strength you think that this kid has? Because he's got 3 Irish national titles, and you've ridden and raced with him. What's one of his strengths on the bike?
Well, I think he's just so technically talented. If you take him to a steep course or anything like that, you know, we see him kind of hop that onto that bridge that we've seen a lot of other riders kind of mess up with. He rides in the wet a lot, so I think he's just one of those riders that is so technically talented.
Seen a lot of riders have mistakes in that rutted out left-hand corner, putting feet down, still waiting to just see that perfect run to threaten that top time of 2:52. The closest to get there so far is Joe Breeden, back by 0.8. But Jacob Dixon, so close he can taste it, but once again, not going to be enough.
It's one of those kind of tracks where you have a ton of people right in that same second. You think about it as a rider, like, am I on the right side of the second or am I on the wrong side of the second? It kind of plays out. Sometimes you get lucky, but it all evens out over the years.
Stand by for leaderboard.
So you see that low and tucked body style on the bike there that you were speaking toward, Elliot. Now look at our leaderboard right now. Andreas Kolb, untouchable so far.
Man, Kolb, I love it. And it's actually funny, you see Jacob and Mike Jones there right next to each other. I know they ride a lot together, so it's one of those things where they ended up having almost the same run, just like they were in practice.
Well, things here heating up in the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. We've got the top 10 men coming up after the break. Next rider to be on course, G. Atherton. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around.
2, 1.
Welcome back, race fans, to the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. We're about ready to drop our top 10 men on the Innsbruck Downhill course, where so far the same rider has been hanging out comfortably in that hot seat. Austria's Andreas Kolb. He dropped before our coverage started in the men's category, and man, we were just wondering about this run. It's been unstoppable. Andreas, one question I want to ask you, is this, I know you're an Austrian racer, is this a course you have a lot of experience on?
Not actually. I live like 3 hours away and I just trained here once before the race. So it's like pretty new to me, and I did not race the race last year. So yeah.
And Andreas, we've seen a lot of mistakes. What is it that makes this course so difficult?
I think the weather, because it was pretty wet in the morning and now it's getting a little bit more sticky on some sections. The other sections get in more dry, but there are a few big holes and a lot of sketchy routes.
Well, Andreas, we're seeing your run on course right now. You were able to put down a flawless one. You've got 10 more bullets to dodge right now. I know it's a helpless feeling sitting in that hot seat, but enjoy it while it lasts. We got 10 fast racers to go. I hope you can continue to dodge some more bullets.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers, Andreas. Well, we see that course that Andreas was mentioning has been wet all day. You can see, looking back to his run, it was wet during his run. It looks like there was water falling, so no easy paths for him. It's not like he was there practicing for the last 3 weeks. It's not like he took to a dry course. So now getting a little bit more information about that run, showing that it's even more impressive the fact that he's been able to stay in the hot seat and the top spot of our leaderboard. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Of course, it's crazy to finally be back on track. Crankworx Innsbruck not getting canceled this year. Join the conversation on social media. Use the hashtag CrankworxFromHome. And while you're on your computer, one thing you have to check out is a great foundation that our own Elliot Jackson has put together, Grow Cycling. For more on that, take a look at this.
Here's a VT.
We started Grow Cycling Foundation so that the next Elliot Jackson can be even better than I am. We're here to go beyond words, to show you that no matter where you come from and what you look like, your dreams are valid, and you belong here.
So Elliot, it's really cool the work you've been doing with Grow Cycling Foundation. Explain to me a little bit about the mission statement behind the whole project.
Yeah, you know, I think for me, especially right now, it's so important that we welcome everyone into the sport. We all love this sport so much, and one of the things that we're doing is building a pump track in Los Angeles, and I think really giving people the opportunity to enjoy the sport of mountain biking, to bring the outdoors to the city, and it's just awesome. It's so cool to see all the progress and all the support that we've gotten.
It's great. Mountain biking is such a fantastic sport, and if you don't grow up in the mountains, you may never have access to it. And we see Crankworx having the Pump Track Challenge be such a nice gateway that is showing mountain biking to so many people and allowing that to get them into the hills. The pump track is such a great stepping stone. So I know that's just one of the first projects that you guys are setting your sights on, but I know you have so many more goals. And I know the work that you're doing right now will just continue to grow mountain biking, bring more opportunities. So thank you for putting that all together. It's been a long week of competition already out here. If you've been with us, you've seen pump track, dual slalom, speed and style, and of course, my favorite event, slope style, took place on Friday. The man to beat right now, Emil Johansson, and right now we're going to have the opportunity to see what it looked like through his eyes. He was wearing a GoPro Hero 9 during his history-making run. Let's go on board with the winning run from the slopestyle of Emil Johansson.
All right, we're set. Everybody's ready. Make some noise, Emil Johansson!
So this was crazy. Starting out with two tricks that we don't even see typically from Emil. And then in the middle of the run, he just went into his old favorites, tricks that gave him the win earlier this season in ROTORUA. And something that you can tell from this POV is the fact that it was windy during this run. He came up so short on one of these features, but just kept going. Regular tricks, opposite tricks. He finished it off with that opposite 360 tail whip to bar spin, and he was just straight up unbeatable. The 94 took the win, and even though there was no crowd there to celebrate in the finish line, the riders were just floored. So much mutual respect out there. Just goes to show how impressive of a rider he is. The fact that he's so skilled on the bike, but he's a nice dude off the bike as well. All the riders congratulating him. He's definitely just opening up the door to a new era in slope style. And we're seeing more of the same in downhill right now. Valley Hall just took the win for the women. She's definitely the one everybody's looking at who's going to be somebody to beat for years and years to come. We have 10 more racers to go in our men's category right now. And Andrew Needling, we're going to see the return of Brook Macdonald at the end of this race right now. How remarkable is that? Can you believe we're seeing him back on the bike just a year after that crazy spinal cord injury?
It's very difficult to put it into words what Brook Macdonald is able to achieve, and just to be able to ride a bike again, walk again, and he was really courageous to let us in on that journey. And I've been speaking to him a lot. I think he's got a kind of a new lease on life. So he's really appreciating being back riding in Europe. He said even if the races don't take place, that was great to be back part of his team. But I know how it is coming back from a small injury. I don't know how it is to come back from potentially not being able to walk properly or ride a bike ever again. So I can imagine he's also chomping at the bit to see where he stacks up. So it's one thing saying he's racing again, but we all know he's a competitive guy. And by the looks of those GoPro videos, he's on pace. How much pace? We don't know yet. He doesn't actually know yet. So how exciting is it to see him back? Because there's also the time that we're going to get to see.
Yeah, it's great to have him back, just to see him on course. And, you know, if he's able to hit his lines, it's going to be that much more impressive. But we're seeing right now the fact that we haven't seen anybody new go into the hot seat. It's a game of inches out there, especially on this narrow course. Let's take a look at what kind of difference just a few inches can make setting up for some of these corners.
Yeah, this is that last section that we see. We see the outside there. One of the reasons the riders take that is because earlier in the day, that berm would have been on the inside, but it actually got pushed out throughout the day. There's actually another line here where we see the riders check up and then go over the route. So, like I was talking about, do you go slower, go inside? That inside actually sets you up a little bit better for the next turn. You know, you don't really have to think about carrying so much speed out of it, but it's just one of the, you know, hundreds of decisions that the riders are making down this course.
Well, one of the racers with the most experience out of the entire field here is on course, a former world champion, G. Atherton.
Man, and G is one of those people, you know, when I first got into downhill, just watching him ride, watching the speed that he carries, watching the consistency, it is just something to marvel at.
Now,
yeah, he's
Andrew,
one of the most technically gifted riders as well. I mean, we spoke about Dixon being technically gifted. I mean, he's moved to Wales. He's so good when it gets rooty and rocky, and he's always dropping a foot, which I think in these sort of areas is going to maybe play into his favor. It's a two-time world champion, but he must be struggling because he hasn't found the form that he had a few years ago because he's been battling back from injuries. And I think physically he's back, but mentally it takes time to regain that confidence.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of riders, when they take a foot off, it's a mistake. But for G, he's so good at getting clipped back in as soon as he puts his foot back on the pedal that it's been one of the mainstays in his technique.
Oh, G. Atherton off the time of Andreas Kolb by 1.7 seconds off the podium contention right there. We saw him drop feet, of course. That can be a benefit at some points, but it looked to be a deficit in this run, losing speed on camera. Andreas Kolb, we spoke with him moments ago. He's able to hang on to that lead right now, but Adrian Daly already impressive turnout so far this week, and he's been busy this season.
Man, he has. He's been, you know, riding slaloms, riding EWSs. We see him on that trail bike as well. Like Andrew was saying, it's you know, that's what he rides all the time. And a lot of those EWS courses are extremely gnarly.
So Adrian Daly on the trail bike. He was 5th place here just a year ago. So things are really starting to heat up. I'm sure Andreas Kolb is getting a little bit shaky in that hot seat watching Adrian Daly taking the course.
Yeah, and he's, again, one of those kind of new school riders, just carrying a ton of speed, sitting down there. You know he's fit enough to pedal, so he's actually, for sure, thinks that it's faster to sit down there.
Oh! Adrian Daly threading the needle on Fabio's bridge.
And needles, for the people at home, what is the difference between the lines that you would take on a trail bike and the lines you would take on a downhill bike?
Well, I think that's a good point. I think on the trail bike it's a little bit lighter, so some of those insides you can kind of hop and maneuver the bike better, and then you can kind of get up to speed again. So downhill bike is a little bit heavier. You need to keep momentum, so you might need to run a few wider lines, even though he did take that wide line there because it's the safer one. That would be the main difference.
Well, he was a half-second back at the split. We saw mid-course, and he crosses the finish line easily in the lead. He was not pushing and just barely sneaking into that top spot, knocking Kolb down to second by 0.17. The craziest part for me was Well, yeah, the fact that he was so close to falling into Fabio's trench, but the fact that he didn't like aggressively accelerate across the line, he just cruised through there in the green.
Yeah, man, oh man, like it's just inch perfect or inch safe.
Yeah, we talked about it being a game of inches, and right there, just the blink of an eye margin, but Charlie Murray heats things up. Let's see if we can continue this trend.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys that, you know, he's from New Zealand, comes from the enduro background. Bernard Kerr actually hooked him up with a bike and a ride this year after he smoked everyone at the Trans New Zealand race.
That's one way to get a new sponsorship is show up, kill it in front of Bernard Kerr, who's one of your racers and a team manager.
I'm interested to see how he handles this lower section here. He's going to be strong. It's because one of the reasons that we're seeing some of these mistakes, it's not, you know, it's super difficult, it's super wet, but it's also really physical. To be able to, you know, maneuver the bike, you're really, you know, seeing him there just go a little bit too wide and put his front wheel over the berm. That's going to take a ton of energy. So, you know, down here, he's going to have to work even harder to make that back up and not make mistakes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little too late for Charlie Murray here. Some issues on screen already outside that top time. We're so used to that hot seat occupant being cold, but now Adrian Daly, the man to beat, still a 252. And a look back at the bobble from Murray.
Yeah, and so we see here just braking a little bit late. That rut is going to look much better than it is. That stuff on the outside looks like it'll hold you, but it's actually just fluff. So you try to, you know, lean into it and she gone.
Yeah, we haven't really seen anybody ride that left-hand corner smoothly, so that can be one of our gauges there. It's a hard spot to actually get back up to speed. If you do have a mistake, it flattens out right there, so that just eats away the time. George Brannigan on course.
Yeah, and Needles, this guy, you know just as well as I do, he's got some gaps in Queenstown that I don't think any of us would ever even dream of doing.
No, they're absolutely disgusting. George Brannigan coming off a third at ROTORUA back in March, so he was riding back, Waddle back then, and he is a guy that will take risks on a racetrack. We've seen him back in ROTORUA. He's done some very tough gaps, gnarly gaps, so maybe out of camera he would have done one of those. Let's see it. He looks like he is carrying good speed. We'll see what the split will tell us, but George Brannigan, he's had a lot of up and downs, but man, when it's all clicking, the speed is just, it's definitely there. And there it is. He's up at the split.
Oh, wow, George Brannigan up at the split. And Andrew, you'd be able to speak toward this. I'm curious, for guys like Brannigan from New Zealand, we haven't had races this summer at a time where they're usually over in Europe hitting it hard on the World Cup circuit, but they've been sitting during this quarantine during winter. What's it like to come into a season late without much training?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big challenge for them, but you can see some of them got over, and they got over to the Europe Bike Park, so they've been getting some good bike time in.
Oh my goodness, that is nothing.
That's nothing. 900ths of a second back. So take a look at the eyes up here, Elliot. The body position, trying to keep this bike connected to the very, very slippery Innsbruck downhill course.
Man, and I think one of the things that is important to take note of, every single one of those little routes, the riders are seeing, hopping over, unweighting. You know, if you put your weight down in the wrong spot, then that's when you see the riders slip out. And Charlie Harrison here from the US just really, you know, coming into his own last year, getting that podium at Snowshoe, and you know, he trains so hard, wakes up at 6 a.m. for some reason, and
for some reason,
and he's just on it. He's one of those. He's a professional through and through, and we actually saw his trainer Chris Kilmer also in the race. So, you know, I think that bodes well for somebody who is training to actually ride at a pro level.
So Charlie Harrison
Well,
looking to be on point. We're awaiting that split.
Yeah, guys, and I'd hope he's taking it seriously and professional. He's 1.2 up, but you're right, Elliot, he is a consummate professional. He ticks all the boxes. I think his riding style and sort of balance on the bike is great. He's really good at generating ground speed. We saw it back at those World Cups at Maribor. He was so fast. He got a podium there as well, got an injury, and then managed to get another podium. And this is early in his career, so I think we're going to see a lot to come from Charlie Harrison.
Yeah.
This should be a fast run, potentially taking over the hot seat.
Look at that. The first time we've seen a convincing lead out of a racer moving into hot seat position. Charlie Harrison by 1.3.
Yeah, that lower section, I think that was the first, Charlie was the first rider that we really saw being so confident down there. He was doing some wide lines that nobody really was, keeping both his feet on, just moving the bike, hopping over the roots, really being confident down there. I think that was the main thing that I saw.
So with 5 racers to go here in our pro men's field, David Trummer from Austria. I'm sure he knows this course well. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, David Trummer was one of those guys last year that just was on fire. Like, was one of those people who he's been in the World Cup scene, on the World Cup circuit, and hadn't really kind of came into his own. And then all of a sudden last year we saw him getting podiums, was consistently top 10, and is also an Austrian rider, so he's going to be familiar here, hometown. Even though he doesn't have the crowd, he's going to have the hometown Austrian vibes.
Yeah, he'll be super bummed that this year kind of got cut short because, I mean, Elliot, if Charlie Harrison had a breakout year, so did David Trummer, and he's up as well. He's 1.3 up. I'm not surprised. Local guy, he's Austrian, and he would be beaming with confidence after all those results last year. Now he's managed to hop onto the YT Mob. He's got a factory ride. So David Trummer, the local man here, dropping a foot there but not losing any time. This is looking good, guys.
Oh, David Trummer with very minimal bobbles in the places we're seeing everybody have bobbles that are more time suckers. And David Trummer through the line by 1.8. This is what we were expecting to happen as we get into the top 5 of our field. Expect a lot of shakeups here with 4 to go.
Yeah, and I think it can't be understated enough to go, even though he's riding the same bike, to go into a new team environment, you know, coming off of that year, there's extra pressure. Oh my lord, I think his back wheel just went off the course. But it means so much more to mentally be able to carry that from year to year, not to lose it, you know, especially on a year like this where you train for so much longer, you don't know where you stand, and to come out and execute like that is really impressive.
Well, good to see David Trummer, despite a long break after he was climbing the ladder, able to continue on that pace and move into the lead with just 4 more racers to go in our IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. A big name coming up next. Mick Hanna, he was 4th here last year, 2nd in 2017. One of the most experienced racers in the game.
The old boy showing off the gloves.
And here's a look at our current leaderboard with 4 to go.
Yeah, man, it's the names that we would expect to be up there, but you know, we have Kolb, one of those people that we might not expect, and this is a precursor to the World Championships next week as well. We talked about Mick Hanna he's one of those people that is so fit and also can pump a bike. Anytime you have a track that's super fast, really kind of has a lot of jumps, a lot of berms, and roots, Mick Hanna knows how to ride it.
So the winner of our last big international race back in March, Mick Hanna, I mean, I would put him as a danger man here. Let's see if he can live up to Elliot's expectations, my expectations. He's got so much experience, and he still says he's loving the course. He loves the top off, but he does say this bottom off that we've seen a lot of mistakes, and they're almost one from him, is going to be tough to get clean. So that's a key thing, is be aggressive at the top, and then you've almost got to shut it down a little bit and be really smart and precise, which is the polar opposite to what you normally do. You need to always be pushing to the finish line and things like that, Elliot. I mean, that's kind of a conscious decision you got to make here at the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because you see a lot of people at home might be wondering, like, why would you sit down in that middle section? And the reason is because, you know, if you would pedal there, maybe you make up a quarter of a second, but that's going to wear you out for all of that stuff you need to execute on down below. So it's really a trade-off. Where do you make up time at, and where do you kind of chill out at?
Mick Hanna back by 4.2, moving into 6th place with 3 more riders to go. Ed Masters, Laurie Greenland, and we'll finish things off with the return of the Bulldog, Brook Macdonald. Let's take a look back at this run from the veteran, Mick Hanna.
And you see there, that same thing that happened to Fabio almost happened to Mick, where there's a little bit of an off-camber right after that route. So it's super precise, and as soon as as a rider, you jump that, and you know you're a little bit offline, you want to adjust your body position just like Mick did there. That way you don't go into the old gorge.
Andrew, what's it like seeing a racer from your era still going strong after many his age have hung up their racing hats?
It's impressive. It really impresses me how he does it, and, you know, dealing with the pressure and the expectations, and year in, just not getting burnt out. You know, I mean, you do something for so long, it can be a challenge to get motivated, to push yourself, knowing that there's inherent dangers, like the horrific thing that can happen to Brook. It's really surprised me how they're able to block that out of their mind. I think mentally, it's the most impressive thing that they're able to do. Physically, I think, you know, with eating right and training and doing all those things, I think you can keep your body in good shape. But mentally, you start kind of doubting yourself more. There's more sort of battle scars in your head.
Always great to see Mick Hanna on course. He's always a contender. Perhaps he had some issues off screen because that run looked solid, but right now it's all about the man who took the silver medal here last year from New Zealand, Ed Masters.
Yeah, Ed Bull Media House. I think he's, you know, one of the things that people underestimate about Eddie is just how fit he is. You know, being in New Zealand, I would be up there, and I would see Eddie on his second lap up the gondola. He just trains so hard, and is so fast, is so good at these technical tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming off some solid results in the EWS, but he might be one of the top all-rounders that we have. You know, there's Martin Mays that can mix it up in downhill and win an EWS, but Eddie Masters did 2 top 10s last year, one in EWS or a few LTM podiums, but he also top 10 in a World Cup downhill. We haven't seen Eddie this year in a downhill race yet because he was coming back from injury in ROTORUA, so this is going to be interesting to see what sort of time he can put down on a downhill bike.
Yeah, and we see with this follow cam just how wet the track is, and especially on that section right there. You know, you would say, you know, why are the riders going around that route? And it's because it's so exposed. So as soon as you try to go over it, it just it'll take your front tire straight out.
Oh, so close for Ed Masters, slotting into 2nd place, just 1.6 off the lead. And we talk about how riding this downhill course is a game of inches, so easy to get offline. We got to give a little credit to that drone pilot as well.
I know. It was like, is somebody running behind him, or?
So Ed Masters, 2nd place here in 2019, currently sitting in 2nd place right now with 2 to go, guaranteed at least a 4th place finish.
And he was one of the only people I saw do this double-double right there, which is really impressive. Just being able to, you know, off the routes here. He's jumping off of wet routes, onto a wooden bridge.
It's the craziest thing. We haven't seen a single racer be actually clean through that rutted out left-hander that has an uphill after it. And I know this course is long. There's plenty of spaces to make up time, but that's just one that we have a tangible view of every time.
He's got the eye of the tiger coming into the finish.
So David Trummer holding it down for Austria. I know we don't have this course lined with screaming fans, blowing horns, ringing bells, but I'm sure everybody who's joining us live via Red Bull TV, all the Austrian fans are very excited to see that hot seat belonging to an Austrian racer. But how long will that last as Great Britain's Laurie Greenland warms up in the start gate on course?
And we've got Laurie and Red Bull this year. And for you, Needles, when you got a big sponsor like that, what kind of pressure does it put on you to perform?
Yeah, I think something like that will just kind of give him a pat on the back for all the hard work. He managed to win a World Cup last year. I think at this stage, Laurie's done enough that it's going to just kind of give him more confidence that they believe in him. They're going to give him, back-end budget for videos and for training and all those things. So I think that helmet will be okay for Laurie. I mean, he's already proved himself time in and time again. He's just such a threat for the future.
Yeah, and it was interesting there on the flat. You saw him sitting down, actually taking his hands and adjusting his hands to kind of get the arm pump out. As a rider, you kind of pick spots to say, okay, I just made it through this section. Let me regroup, think about what I need to do next. Maybe take a breath. Get my kind of mentally prepare for the final push of the course.
So Laurie Greenland just outside that top spot, slotting right off the podium into 4th. Man, that run looks so fast, but once again, who knows what happens off camera. But right now, Laurie Greenland's teammate, this is one of the most exciting things we've seen in years. Brook Macdonald, of course, with that horrific crash last year. He talks about how crazy this journey has been. He's learned so much in a year about his own body. Retraining his brain and learning to walk again was probably the best thing he's ever accomplished. And we never thought if we'd see him walk again, and the idea of seeing him racing 1 year later we thought was completely impossible, but nothing's impossible for this man. Let's hear what he had to say about this wild experience the past 13 months.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling being back in Europe is pretty amazing. It's something that I dreamed of coming back here through my recovery, and I guess to be back here in a short amount of time is a pretty good feeling, and to even be racing is even better. When I hop into that start gate, everything will sort of roll over, and I'd be in the process of being back racing. It's definitely going to be game on when the finals come.
Brook Macdonald is always such a fierce competitor, and he took that same level of fierceness into his recovery. It takes such a strong mind to be able to push through something like that. And this right here is amazing to see. Brook Macdonald back on course.
Yeah, and like you heard him say, this is just the next chapter. As soon as he took that first pedal out of the starting gate, it marks the next step of the journey. It marks the journey back to the #1 spot.
It's a tough journey just to become a professional downhill racer, and anything in life that's hard to accomplish is easy to take for granted once you've accomplished it. But Brook Macdonald was forced to put everything back into perspective now, learning how to do everything over again, from walking to pedaling to racing. You hear him talk about his fitness right now. He feels like he's fitter than ever, despite what he's been through in the last year.
Yeah, right. And he's spent a bunch of time on the road bike, a bunch of time training. He's right there. On the first split, he was actually only 0.109 back. So it's good to see Brook just out here racing and racing fast. It's not like he's that far off.
Yeah, this is not just like an exhibition. Oh wow, look, Brook's back on course. He's actually ripping, and it's just going to continue to improve.
I just want to jump in and cheer at this guy, man. I don't even want to commentate.
That is just so amazing.
These guys need to be cheering and standing ovation for this guy.
11th place on your first ride back against the best riders in the entire world.
5 seconds off the win is Brook Macdonald. And let me remind you all, we hear the cheers coming from the venue. There's no fans allowed. Everybody there is cheering so loud. This is the first time we've heard any cheering the entire week. Everybody feeling the emotion of this moment, and so impressed by the athleticism and just the mental fortitude of Brook Macdonald.
And because we all know, you know, how hard he worked. He was able to show us that on Instagram. We all felt like we were right there with him every step of the way, and I think for all of us it's just so emotional to see him out here. We just we love him like a brother, and to see him out on the track after what he's gone through is just so impressive and incredible.
Brook Macdonald, 11th place today, the first race back. That's a story we'll be talking about for a while. And he said, I'm not done. Bring it on, don't count me out.
There's no way I'm done.
Well, I'm sure everybody on site right now is excited for Brook Macdonald, but also all the Austrians are probably thrilled to see the gold medal go to somebody from their country. David Trummer grabbing the win here against so many top racers. He had a great season on the World Cup last year and obviously didn't miss a beat.
Here comes your interview.
Yeah, it's just so great to see that camaraderie. I think
So David, it's great to see you win on home soil here. I'm curious, is this a course that you get a lot of practice on your own time?
Yeah, it's really good to be back racing against all the good World Cup riders, and actually this place here is a bit far from me because I literally live on the other side of Austria, so it's about 6 hours drive here for me.
And David, you're on the same bike, but you're on a new team. What has been the biggest change for you this year going through that process?
Well, in the beginning, it took me a bit of time, just to change the parts, like suspension and everything. But, because of Corona, I ended up having quite a lot of time on the bike now. So, yeah.
Well, you put all that training to good use and capitalize on this moment. I'm sure everybody there is really excited to see you take the win. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So David Trummer grabbing the gold. Let's take a look at our final results right here, Elliot.
Yeah, man.
Seconds
Eddie,
to break.
right there. Look at second, third, and fourth. We have a 1.6 back and a 1.9 back. That's like
20
less than a bike length probably. So going into the World Championships next year, those top 5 are all going to be your contenders. So it's good to see how fast everyone's going.
David Trummer with the win. Ed Masters 2 years in a row with a silver medal here in the IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. Of course, we're going to take the opportunity to talk to the man himself, Brook Macdonald, after the break. Stick around.
Break 5, 4, 3. 6, 5, 3, 1.
Well, we just had the conclusion of our IXS Innsbruck Downhill presented by Raiffeisen Club. And man, did it ever feel good to get back to racing.
This is the perfect treat. The course was amazing. It was difficult. It was technical. We saw all the riders pushing. Great camera work from the Crankworx crew. I love Crankworx.
It's better than late than never, right? I mean, it may be October. I feel like we're so lucky we're able to get all these events in without the snow falling. We're in the Alps after all.
Yeah, it's so true. Seeing snow in Innsbruck, I've never seen that before. So I know the riders probably were a little bit chilly, but you get on the course and you get warmed up.
It was a great warm-up for World Champs coming up. Plenty of mountain bike action coming at you on Red Bull TV, and this was a great warm-up for the racers as well to kind of whet the appetite after such a long off season.
Yeah, it's so true, and I think that some riders, it doesn't really predict anything, because we can kind of see who's on form, but at the same time, a world championship race, you're going to take so much risk. There's different preparation that goes into it. Who can perform mentally? Who can really make not make those mistakes and execute on their plan?
And one of the things we're looking forward to the most with this Innsbruck Downhill is seeing Brook Macdonald back on course. I don't know about you, but I was, watching his social media, knowing that he's racing again, and I go, just the fact that he's on course is going to be impressive, but I didn't know where he was going to, slot into the lineup. But 11th place, think about how many we had in our field. We just saw the top 20, but I mean, that's a full field of racing. We couldn't fit everybody into the webcast. He beat a lot of people.
He beat pretty much everyone, and I think it was so cool for me to be at the desk with him in ROTORUA and have him say no. Like I never, not even once, thought about not coming back. And we believe in him, but to see him put in the work to actually come back from that type of injury later in that same year, it's just so incredible. It's amazing.
So it's not done for mountain biking this weekend on Red Bull TV. Rob Warner's in the Czech Republic for World Cup cross country. How are things going out there, Rob?
Well, thank you, Cam. The action actually here in the Czech Republic this week has been about as unpredictable as the rest of 2020. We even saw the Olympic champion Nino Schurter record his worst ever finish in a cross-country race here. Unbelievably finishing down in 4th place. He's got one last chance to put it right, though. That's right now in the last cross-country World Cup of the year. It's live on Red Bull TV as we speak. Please join us and watch the action unfold.
1. Well, if you can't get enough of mountain bike racing, Rob Warner has some more for you. So tune in to the cross-country race going on in Czech Republic. Keep it locked on Red Bull TV. Somebody who can't get enough of downhill is Brook Macdonald, despite everything he's been through. Back racing today. I believe we have him on headset. Brook, we were like over the moon with goosebumps seeing you on course, but realistically didn't know where your pacing would be. Did you surprise yourself today?
I mean, putting a full run together was a win for me. So I honestly, inside me, I wanted to finish inside the top 10 and 11th. I honestly couldn't be more stoked. I'm up against some of the best in the world that have been doing a little bit of racing and riding. So for me to come here and finish 11th, I'm over the moon, and it's such a good confidence boost going into World Champs. Now I've done a race weekend and been able to get as much prep as I can for World Champs and heading into there. So I'm honestly over the moon to be back racing, and it's such a good feeling. I was a little nervous at the top. I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders watching me, and I always want to impress, and I feel like I definitely did today.
Was there a highlight of the weekend? Was it riding with friends? Was it going off the gate for the first time? Was it practicing?
Yeah, I guess just being back with everyone that I'm used to being around 6 months of the year is honestly the best thing. And just to be around everyone, obviously with COVID restrictions, it's pretty hard. But just seeing faces brings a massive smile to my face, because, a year ago lying in a hospital bed, I never thought maybe I'd be here back doing it. I always had that in the back of my head, but, there was that slight thought. But for sure, dropping in that start gate was massive for me.
Well, everybody's facing their own challenges in life, and we all need sources of inspiration, and that's exactly what you've provided to everybody who's been following your story, proving that setting goals and keeping on a smile on your face, you can do anything, even things that are completely unthinkable. So the goosebumps still haven't gone away. I'm so psyched to see you on the bike and racing. Good luck moving forward. We'll all be cheering for you, Brook.
Thank you so much, Cam. Thanks, Elliot.
Wow, what an inspiration, Elliot. I mean, it's ridiculous. No matter what anybody's complaining about out there, you know, you can look at Brook Macdonald's story and just, you know, get up in the morning and just tackle it.
Totally. It's incredible. It's an inspiration for us all.
Yeah, so surprising that we were able to pull off Crankworx Innsbruck this year. We're also going to set some dates for next year and keep our fingers crossed. You never know. We're always lucky when we have this opportunity to broadcast races for you. And we're hoping to be able to do it all again next year. 2021 season. Put it on your calendar. Crankworx Innsbruck will hopefully be back here again, maybe even in person next year if we're lucky. But what a ridiculous week of racing. Everything from dual slalom to pump track, slopestyle, speed and style, and downhill. Next year, June 16th through the 20th is when we'll be hopefully traveling to Innsbruck, Austria, and bringing you more Crankworx World Tour action. I got to thank everybody for tuning in. I have to thank my compadres, Andrew Needling and Elliot Jackson. Thank you to all the racers for putting on the show. We will see you next year, race fans. Good night.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6 to credits, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Red Bull slate? Red Bull? Yeah. Thank you.